You ready?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Let's Get Loud podcast. This is a not solo podcast episode because I have my buddy Alfie here.
Hi.
Okay, so remember when we talked about
Okay.
you in the mic?
Hi.
Oh, there we go. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, you'll get to see my little Alfie. You're not so little anymore though, son. You're
No.
kind of turning into a man.
Yeah.
Okay, remember that this is a podcast and you're gonna need to
Yeah.
yeah, there. So you're gonna have to sit up. You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have been wanting to record this podcast because I feel like Alfie has a really special story. I also am probably gonna cry. I might cry.
Oh, great.
I think Alfie has such a special story, and just recently, him being a part of Team NB football was such a milestone in his little world. And it's a milestone for any kid, but it was extra special for Alfie because he kind of had a different journey to this point, and I wanted to kind of talk about it. Thank you for being willing to share with it with us.
You're welcome.
Do you know what's really cool about sharing is Mom shares a lot of about herself on the internet, and often people reach out to me and they say like thank you for sharing that, like
Mm.
that really helped me.
Yeah.
So and I've always shared quite openly about your learning differences,
Yeah.
and that has for sure helped other moms that have kids with learning differences.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to take you guys to Alfie as a little kid. So even before he started kindergarten, I knew like something was like different. He was just a really sweet, quiet little boy. He really still is. But he wasn't talking a lot. And I kept taking him to a speech therapist, and they kept saying, like, nothing's wrong with your kid. Like, stop bringing him. And then he started school, and it was like kindergarten, grade one. And he just like, I felt like he wasn't learning typically. He just wasn't grasping the concepts of reading. Do you remember being that little? Like, do you remember grade one, grade two? Do you even remember like who your teachers were?
I remember in kindergarten we had Mrs. Graham.
Okay. So do you remember kindergarten at all?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. So I really knew to my core that something was up with Alfie. So we chose to get a private assessment to not wait to go through the school system. So he was put through like these tests by a child psychologist who specializes in um, diagnosing kids with learning differences. Do you remember that? Do you remember sitting in her office?
A bit, yeah.
What do you remember?
It was like a wooden table and she had like Rubik's cubes on like one side and she told us to like
Told you
yeah.
you were by yourself.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to go in the room with you.
Oh, yeah, right.
You were by yourself. So I took Alfie. It was like hours and hours and hours of us being assessed. And even though obviously I knew, like I had brought him, I'll never forget sitting in the office and I was alone. I don't know where Neil was. He was maybe being the dad. But or I guess the girls would have been around at that point too, right? So we had
Mm.
three kids by that point. But I remember sitting in the office and getting his diagnosis and just like tears rolling down my face. And I wasn't like bawling, but I would just, and I think for me, it was thinking about that things were going to be like difficult for him. Um, but what I didn't realize is like with those challenges came such amazing things that we're going to talk about in the future. But like I didn't know that at that point,
Yeah.
right? I was just like, I was worried about you. And like,
Mm.
no mom wants to see their kids struggle in any way, shape, or form, you know? And so I just knew that reading and writing was going to be a little bit harder for you.
Yeah.
So, what Alfie was diagnosed with was a dyslexia, so severely dyslexic. Also, he processes slowly. So, what this means is something goes in his brain and it just takes a little while to process. It doesn't mean he's slow, it just means his processing is slow. And when he was really little, I could literally see him think. Like, I would say something to him and you would literally see him think. So, what happened with that diagnosis, though, or that difference in his brain, it really impacted his gross motor. So if you would throw a ball at Alfie, he knew he had to catch the ball, but if you think about it, his brain has to go catch the ball while the ball's coming fast at his face, and then to put his hands up, he would always be too slow. And I think also we just weren't focused on doing sporty things with him. He was going to tutoring, he went to tutoring twice a week, every single day, every single week for how long?
4 years.
Was it 4 years? It was from grade two to grade six. Yeah, you're right. 4 years. So he just was busy. He was busy learning to read. And so it did put him behind his peers when it came to gross motor. And I just thought, you know what? No big deal. Like, this is just going to be another challenge or difference for him. I was like worried that maybe like he would get made fun of or that he would like feel like he wasn't fitting in. But the really cool thing about Alfie is, and I don't know if it's because it's who you are as a human or maybe it's because you got diagnosed so early or a little bit of
Hmm.
both, but you've always just been like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever felt embarrassed or ashamed of the way that your brain works?
No.
Never.
No.
One thing that we did, I'm so grateful he got diagnosed so early, is I had found this little video and it was about dyslexia and what it would feel like to have dyslexia. And I showed it to Alfie and he watched it. And do you remember what you did?
No.
You asked me if I would show it to your friends.
Oh yeah.
And so do you remember the day we did it? We went for a
Yeah.
walk. Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Yeah.
And I brought all his friends around because Alfie has like this incredible friendship group. They're called the Goated Seven. They actually just had a all-nighter sleepover last night, so Alfie's a little bit of a zombie. So I gathered them around and I just said, I just want you guys to understand that Alfie's brain works differently. We showed them the video, and your buds have always
Yeah.
been super respectful
Hmm.
and like inclusive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of like getting to a point where, and like teaching him to ride his bike. Oh, do you remember that? That that was so painful because he had like his brain is like thinking about all the things he has to do. But when you're on a bike, like you have to think quickly, right? And you have to do this. So he had to think of his brain doing so many things at once. So that was tricky. I thought that might beat me as a mother, but I beat it. We learned. And
Yeah.
tying your shoes was really hard for you. I
Hmm.
think you finally learned this year. But I'm so proud of you. You did not give up. And there'd be times where I try to do it for you. And what would you say?
No.
You're like, no, mom, I got this. So, how do we get into football? Let's get to that part. So, we were camping. So, wait, I said this to Alfie the other day. I said, I don't remember how you started to like football. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us the story.
We were at a camping trip. Was it like Hard Island or Kuchamaquag?
I'm not sure which one it was, honey, but we were on a camping trip with our friends.
It was George and Jack.
Yeah.
Was Huds?
I don't know if Hudson would have been around
Yeah.
then. Probably not.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
So, Jack and George were just, they already played. So they just brought a ball and started throwing it around.
Okay.
And then and then, I was like, oh, can I play? And then they threw it and then I caught it.
Did you actually catch it though?
I think so.
Okay. Okay. And then what?
And then they just taught me how to play.
And so then Alfie came home and he said to me, I want to, here, have a drink of water, son. He said, I want to play football. And I was like, and guys, I almost said no. I almost, I didn't want, I wanted to protect him from feeling failure. I wanted to protect him from feeling from ever the chance of being made fun of. And I wanted to say no. But man, am I glad that I pushed through that and let him play. So, what was that first season of football like?
Our team lost every single game.
Okay.
I didn't play that much.
Mm-hmm. And how were your skills in general as a football player?
Not that good. Yeah,
Like, how were you when it came to like catching the ball,
terrible.
throwing the ball,
Terrible.
tackling?
Eh.
Okay. And then why do you remember like loving it even though think about it, bud. You had a season where you lost every game, you barely played, you were ish at tackling, not good at catching, not super fast runner either. What made you keep going?
I don't know. Just I don't know.
You just kept going.
Yeah.
So then I remember that year was kind of tough. It was actually just last year because it was in grade six. Grade
Yeah.
six, boys were playing football at lunchtime. And it wasn't just your friends, it was like a
Yeah.
bigger group. And they would pick captains every
Mm.
single week, every single day. And then what would happen?
I was always the last pick.
So they would pick teams,
Yeah.
and you were the last pick every single day.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel, bud?
Mm, kind of sad.
That was the first time I think that I really saw you like upset by what was going on.
Yeah.
And do you remember you like came home and told me about it?
Yeah.
Do you remember the advice I gave you?
No.
No. I just said, first of all, that must be so hard. Like, I'm so sorry. And I basically said, like, you have two choices. You can choose to not play with them at all anymore, or you can choose to accept that you still want to play and you still want to be a part of it, and you just accept getting picked last. And what did you do?
Except getting picked last.
And you kept playing.
Yeah.
And then he played flag for the first season. And I feel like flag football was where he really like he had got some confidence.
Yeah.
Why do you think flag was so good?
Cause you weren't like super scared to like be tackled or get
Right,
tackled.
because there's no
Yeah.
tackling.
Yeah.
So you got to actually
Yeah.
practice your skills.
Yeah.
And he also kind of found a little bit of his spot. So what's your position in flag?
Rusher.
He's the rusher. And what does the rusher do?
Sack the quarterback.
Okay, so tries to pull the quarterback's flag. And you had a really good season.
Yeah.
And you had a really great coach too.
Yeah.
And that same coach was offering like a winter training where you started like lifting weights
Yeah.
and like practicing things. How was that experience?
It was super fun.
Yeah. What did you like most about like lifting weights and stuff?
Uh, just getting like when you moved up like higher weights, you just feel like better.
That experience for him just gave him that feeling of the wins and progress and getting better in such a measurable way. And, okay, I'm gonna cry again. Oh. um, that coach is just such a special person to me because he just always like believed in Alfie and he was like on team Alfie. And I feel like most parents who are sports parents probably have like one coach that or like teacher that you can identify that like made a significant difference in your kid's life. And like Chris is that coach for you. Are you gonna cry?
No.
Oh, you're holding them back. I see those tears. Oh, you're so cute. So, and then this season comes and we're still playing football, but now we're a full football family. Like
Yeah.
we've watched the Super Bowl, we're Chiefs fans, we have jerseys, I have football earrings. Like it's over for us, right?
Yeah.
Like we are officially fans.
Yeah.
And our friend's child, Hudson, had played for Team NB the previous year. And his dad said to me, he was like, "Is Alfie gonna try out for Team NB?" And I was like, "No, no, no." And it was the same moment, Alf. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to protect you from failure. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to protect you from not being as good as the other kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I really sat with it and I decided to like change my thought. And Alfie and I talked about it a lot too. And I said, what if we just do the tryouts for the experience and the exposure? And so we both decided that we were going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But then what happened? What's that say?
FMB 25.
And then
Finish.
Alfie made the team. Like, I can't even believe it. Can you believe it?
Not me.
Do you
Not
want,
really.
okay, come closer. Do you know that when you were trying out, you know how I said that I just wanted you to try out for the experience?
Yeah.
I really actually wanted you to make the team.
Yeah.
Did you also really want to make the team?
Yeah.
I was just trying to make myself feel better about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And what has the experience been like playing on that team?
Fun, competitive, hard.
Yeah, it has. It's really
Yeah.
tested you, eh? Like
Yeah.
you guys have played in the freezing cold, pouring rain, hours of practice. You're getting tackled by big kids. You're tackling, like you're covered in bruises. Pulled a muscle in your back. It's been interesting, eh?
Yeah.
All right. So, if there is anyone listening who is a mom of a kid that thinks differently or a kid, what advice would you give them?
Um, keep pushing.
Keep going,
Yeah.
right? And what about for people who feel sad about being different?
There's nothing wrong with it.
I agree. It's just the way your brain works, right? There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with it. It's just
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Okay, this has been very special. Thank you for doing this with me. I probably shouldn't have done this right before I go to my mom's weekend, eh? I'm a
Yeah.
hot mess express.
Yeah.
Did I cry off my makeup?
No, not really.
Okay, I love you so much, buddy, and I'm like
Hmm.
so, so proud of you. So this weekend, what are we doing this weekend?
Uh, Driving to Nova Scotia and playing Nova Scotia and Acadia.
Oh, Alfie gets to play football at Acadia University against Team Nova Scotia. So we're going to be there with our New Brunswick flags cheering you on, bud. Okay. You're lucky you have a lot of people that cheer you
Yeah.
on. You know that, eh?
Yeah.
All right. I love you, buddy.
Bye.
Bye.